Hello and welcome to SBK Edge Rush Extra. Never, Crystal Tom, forget the extra, particularly not this week of all weeks. Our last show of the season, would you believe?
I know, it's here. It's the last show. We've had a phenomenal run this year. We've now climaxed to the Super Bowl, the biggest game of all, the greatest show on turf. I'm really looking forward to it, despite the fact that neither of our teams are actually playing in the Super Bowl this year.
Who cares about minor details like that? I mean, it could be a long wait for both of us, quite frankly. But do we have the two teams that should be in the Super Bowl? And I say that with the greatest amount of respect to the Bengals and the Bills in the AFC, and of course the desperately unlucky 49ers in the NFC, but it feels right, doesn't it, based on what we've seen over the breadth of the season?
Yeah, I'd say so. We've got the number one seed from both conferences. And yeah, you were touched on there how unlucky the 49ers were last week. The Bengals also, I would say, were very unlucky last week with the officiating calls.
Here we go. Let's get Mike Carlson on this. We can be here for an hour if we got. Carlson, go check out that Coombs Show pod if you want to hit Carlson on the officials in that game. But yeah, for sure, I think it's fair to say a neutral looking on. Sure, I can see why the Bengals felt hard done by. But two powerhouses going head to head. Let's start with the key position, of course, in the NFL. Some might say the most influential position in any sport, the quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. I wrote about Hurts this week for the Times. I've got to get a plug in within 90 seconds. It is a contractual obligation. You know that full well. And it was interesting asking around the great Greg Rosenthal, friend of the show, of course, friend of the Nat Coombs Show pod, around the NFL legend. I chatted to him, Ben Isaacs, of course, one of our crew, talking about Hurts' progression, because I think it's fair to say he has made, other than Josh Allen, the most dramatic development progression over the last 12 months that we've seen with any quarterback in modern times in the NFL. He started the season, we're not sure if he could be a starter in the NFL, let alone is he the weak link in this obviously strong Harry Roseman assembled Philly roster, to now in the conversation, maybe not at the same table quite yet as Mahomes and Burrow and Allen, but he's walking up to the table and he's asking if he can sit down, right? They were talking about his progression and why they're not surprised. He's always been a smart player. He's always been a student of the game. He's always had that fight in him, given what happened to him at Alabama, benched in the national championship game. He has an offense that is built for him, a brilliant offensive line, a strong ground game. Miles Sanders behind him. Two deep threat, heavyweight, 1-2 tag team receivers. It's a recipe for success. And Hurts has moved into that top tier of quarterback. The question is, do you still have doubts about him on the biggest of stages?
I don't personally, but I think it's still an unknown. We can't be convinced. We can't be 100% sure that Jalen Hurts is going to produce an MVP quarterback performance in the Super Bowl because we haven't had any prior experience of him doing just that. I think he's landed in the best possible position, as you've touched on there. They have brilliant players at virtually every position on offense. They've got wide receivers. They've got one of the best tight ends in the game. They've got a couple of running backs who can move the rock whenever they need to. They've got an offensive line that will literally protect Jalen Hurts whenever he gets the ball in his hands. There is no way that Hurts is going to have what Joe Burrow had last week, for example, where the Bengals O-line looked to go back 2 years ago, where they couldn't protect Burrow at all. And they've also got a defense that's ranked second in the league and has been phenomenal in this postseason. However, Jalen Hurts, young quarterback, he's now facing Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback that has been on the front cover of every NFL magazine, every NFL website. He has been the headline writer over the last couple of years. He now has to go up to Mahomes' level. I think he can do it. I think he's a really good player. Anyone that's played under Nick Saban for Alabama, no matter whether he got benched in the national championship, no matter whether he transferred away because of Tua Tagovailoa taking his starting position.
And Saban respected him as well, because Saban let him go to Oklahoma and realized that it was best for him. And he didn't throw his toys out of the pram. And he was a consummate pro, backed up Tua, stepped in again the SEC championship game, of course, when he was counted on, and went with Saban's blessing. It's really interesting when you look, Crystal Tom, at the matchup in particular. And we'll get into a few of the key matchups, the keys to the game. Let's start with that young, vanilla Chiefs secondary up against the aforementioned deep threats. In particular, if you look at A.J. Brown against this Chiefs secondary, because Brown is up for a field day, I think. The Chiefs rank 31st in defensive DVOA against number one receivers in the NFL. 31st, and they're going up against somebody who is clearly in the top 10 receivers in the NFL right now, excels against man coverage, and the Chiefs love to play man coverage. Shout out to Aaron Reese for this breakdown via The Athletic, who was looking in particular at that matchup, made that point, and drilled down into how often the Chiefs play man coverage. Top 10, 8th highest in the league during the regular season. The matchup is made, if they can establish the ground game, which we think they will, for some deep threats, deep hits early on, and the Chiefs to be behind, I think, by potentially a couple of scores early on. Do you think Hurts' shoulder is going to affect him on the ground, how they will use him as a runner? Because, of course, he's racked up close to 800 yards, an extraordinary number of touchdowns this season. If you look at the overall pecking order of running, I think he's just behind Derrick Henry in touchdowns scored this season. Do you think they will, given that injury, we'll see 90% Hurts, 70% Hurts? Will that affect how they use him in design runs? What's your take on how they'll use him in the ground game?
I think they're going to use him quite a lot. Let's just go with that. He's going to be one of my prop bets, actually. A couple of my prop bets are around Jalen Hurts on the ground. Yes, I do think they're going to try and keep Hurts in the pocket early on. Look for AJ Brown, look for Devontae Smith, look for Miles Sanders or Kenneth Gainwell on the screens. Dallas got it down the seam. I think that's the A+ game mode. They're going to go for those. What they've been doing all year, they're going to be looking for those routes. But Kansas City, Andy Reid, we know that he's not stupid. We know he's going to be scheming to stop the receivers. Cover one, as you've touched on there, the Kansas City defense often plays cover one, one safety high, man coverage out wide. That this year has led to a ridiculous average of rushes per QB that they have faced. And not actually the number of rushes, but actually the average yards per rush from the QB. So I did a little bit of study around this. Since week 7, the Chiefs have allowed only 4 rushing touchdowns from QBs, which is, quite low. But they have faced a number of pocket passes within that time frame. However, the average yards per carry from quarterbacks against the Chiefs this year since week 7 is 6.5 yards, which is probably because they play cover one. When the man coverage has to go back with the wide receivers on go routes or post routes, just huge space underneath. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be taking advantage of that. He's super quick out of the pocket, second to just Justin Fields, in my opinion, in how quick and agile he is at gaining yards. Just Jalen Hurts, anytime touchdown scorer, 2.2 with SBK, one of my best bets of the week.
Love that. Okay, so you're obviously big on Hurts having a big game. Mahomes, similarly to Hurts, obviously injury plaguing him in the build up to this game. We're all still scratching our heads. The high ankle sprain that wasn't, or he's superhuman freaky, or maybe a bit of both. They're talking up a big game in the camp. Clearly he has to be affected by it. The question is how much, and again, maybe not so much in terms of design runs that you'd see with Hurts, but Mahomes' ability to extend the play, Mahomes' ability to improvise when he needs to. How much of that split-second spark is going to be slightly stifled by the ankle injury, do you think?
Well, the interesting part about this is Hassan Reddick is going to be on Patrick Mahomes' case within 3 seconds on every single play. Mahomes is going to have to stretch plays. He's going to have to go left out the pocket, right out the pocket. He's going to have that genius Patrick Mahomes edge that allows him to extend plays, create touchdowns, create third down conversions to Travis Kelce down the middle, when it looks like he should never have the opportunity of doing so, because Reddick is just ridiculous. 19.5 sacks this year, 3.5 sacks have come in the postseason. He's just firing on all cylinders. So if Mahomes isn't 100% ready, and I don't know, man, did he have a high ankle sprain? I'm not convinced, because last week he looked
my theory on that
is
the Belichickian smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he had a knock. Was it a high ankle sprain? High ankle sprain, right? Some guys go out for longer, but nobody seems to be okay within the span that Mahomes had. So if we think Mahomes is going to be fine, McCall Harbin, the big injury doubt, of course, for the Chiefs. And that's important. And if you check out the Nat Coombs Show pod, I and Mike breaking down on this week's show and his Super Bowl preview episode with me, how this Chiefs offense has changed post Tyreek Hill. Slice and dice, mixing it up, and therefore the sum of all parts, missing Harbin in isolation, when you weigh up the game plan this season, that's a problem, right? Particularly the kind of threat he offers as well. But others stepping up. Now, Kadarius Toney's another injury when isn't he an injury risk? But he had limited practice, but expect him to participate. Everybody else on the offensive side of the ball seems okay. So Mahomes, much improved offensive line up against this Philly front that is leading the NFL in sacks. Can they protect him enough to get going with possible mobility issues and a slightly weakened deck without Hardman? What's your take on the Chiefs offense?
I think the Chiefs are going to score. They're super hard to stop no matter who they're playing. But I do think they are going to be stopped a couple of occasions because it's not just the pass rush is good with Hassan Reddick. The run game is also, the run D is also good for the Eagles. And the cornerbacks and safeties have been the best in the league this year. I mean, CJ Gardner-Johnson, for example, at safety has 6 interceptions, a league high. You've also got Bradbury and Slay out wide at corner. So Mahomes is going to have to make some big plays because you don't have a wide receiver. I mean, you've got Juju Smith-Schuster, but, he's not elite. You don't have a wide receiver who's going to make plays no matter what. You don't have a Devontae Adams. You don't have an A.J. Brown on your side. So Mahomes is going to have to be A+. He's going to be using Travis Kelce a lot because Kelce is the guy. And also, the Eagles have struggled against tight ends all year. But I am worried that they put Mecole Hardman on IR again, I think, and they've brought back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which I find quite interesting. One, he's probably still banged up a little. 2, they have depth at running back. So I don't know why Edwards-Helaire is coming back into the fray just for the Super Bowl. I think Jarrett McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco are perfectly reasonable enough at running back. You've got probably the best 1-2 punch in the league there. So they're probably going to be dinking, diving, looking for Kelce on the short plays, looking to convert maybe long drives, unlike the Chiefs in recent years, which has been, one and done, Tyreek Hill, 70 yards, touchdown. Kansas City on defense have allowed a ridiculous percentage of touchdowns within the red zone against their opponents. If the Eagles are constantly putting up TDs, the Chiefs are going to have to match them. And I think that could be the fall down for the Chiefs because Mahomes is going to have to throw a few bombs. And when you've got Bradbury and Slay back there, well, I wouldn't want to be Mahomes, I'll tell you that.
That takes us nicely into where I'm leaning on this game. And I'm not going to fence it. I will pick a side as well in terms of the spread. But that's the over I like most of all, because I think that, as we outlined, I think the Eagles are going to be able to put up points, we figure, but go into an early lead, force Mahomes to take it to them. And I think we've got a shootout when the line is 49.5. Is that what we're looking at?
The line's gone up. It's 50 and a half now.
50 and a half. I know a lot of money came in at 49.5. A big syndicate, from what I understand from shops like you, Crystal Tom, weighed in on that 49.5. 50.5. Would you still take it at that number?
I would. I'd rather the over than the under for sure, because not only do I think, and I'm probably giving it away here, but not only do I think the Eagles are going to win this game, but it's not going to be a 10-7 battle. These are 2 of the best offenses in the league this year, 2 of the best QBs.
Oh, you so jinxed it now, man. It's going to be like that Patriots-Rams game. Oh, boy. Which I loved watching. It was fascinating, but I think most casual fans out there, not so much. On the spread, I was looking at this. So the underdog against the spread in the last 10 years, 10 Super Bowls, 7-2-1, the underdog has prevailed against the spread, 1 being a pick'em. 7-2-1. This is difficult, I guess, because I see a lot of the time that line was over 3. So, for example, the Rams are 4.5 dogs, favorites last year. The Chiefs 3 points the year before against the Bucks. That went well. The Chiefs were favored the year before when they beat the 49ers. The Patriots by -1, -2.5. The Patriots -4. So actually, maybe a mixed bag in terms of where that number sits. And this line, of course, has moved quite a lot, swinging backwards and forwards, much like the AFC Championship game between the 2.
Yeah, 1.5 point favorites right now, the Eagles. It's going to be a really close encounter based on the traders. I think the Eagles win by more than 1.5, I have to say, albeit the underdog situation, as you've touched on, the last 10 Super Bowls favours the Chiefs at +1.5. I prefer the Eagles. I think it'll be a shootout, but I think the Eagles will prevail late by maybe a touchdown, maybe a field goal. I'm taking the Eagles to win money line, though, because I don't know. A little difference in price from 1.91 with the handicap with -1.5, or you can take 1.87 money line right now. The SBK, I'd rather the money line. That small difference in reward is not enough for the bigger difference in risk, in my opinion. So I'm going to be taking the Eagles money line. Who do you like?
Better team pretty much across the board, the Eagles, but the coaching edge again. And look, when you're talking about the Super Bowl, it's always with respect to the side that is on the wrong end of what I'm about to say, but demonstrably Andy Reid with the edge and demonstrably Mahomes with the edge. Breadth of experience is critical, I think, in a situation like this. I might make the point as well with Kelsey, with Chris Jones, best individual players on the Chiefs, along with Mahomes, best collective with the Eagles. I am torn. My head says Eagles. My heart says Chiefs. I love the over. I think I'm going to go Chiefs money line.
You going Chiefs? I like it head to head in the Super Bowl.
I just think when it comes to the crunch, I've always had let's back the vet in a big game spot. And it's crazy to call Patrick Mahomes a vet, isn't it? He's still only 26, 27 or whatever, but your third Super Bowl. And look, it's such a fascinating game to call because it's counterintuitive when everything I wrote about in my Times piece this week is about the mental fortitude and strength of Jalen Hurts. He's been in a national championship game and jumped into the void, pushed into the void. He's not going to be phased by it. I don't think he's going to freeze in the lights. I just think that this will, as you said, be a close game, high scoring, will come down to a couple of clutch moments. And I think Mahomes will be able to pull something out of the bag. Now, so much jeopardy. This injury is there, even if it's not as advertised. One hit, bang, we're into an altogether different situation. But that could also, given the shoulder injury, be applicable. Maybe Gardner Minshew's going to be Super Bowl MVP. I mean, come on, what are the odds of that, Crystal Tom? I might put a sneaky little few pounds on that as well. But yeah, the over is my strong play. Chiefs money line is my more left field play.
I mean, that's interesting. I like it both. You touched on the MVP there. I'm going to also have a bit on Jalen Hurts MVP, just purely because if the Eagles win this game, the likelihood is the QB gets the MVP. We know how it works out over the last few years. And you can get, so the Eagles to win money line is roughly 4-5. But Jalen Hurts MVP, you're getting 7-4. So you're getting a bigger price. You know, the value is actually there.
Smart play.
And exactly. And if you're looking just to make cash and you like the Eagles, you'd rather go Hurts MVP rather than Eagles money line just because of that difference. And the other bet I'm having, which is interesting, I don't know how you feel about this because we've touched on the injury for Mahomes injury. I'm backing Patrick Mahomes over 19.5 rushing yards, which is, yes, because firstly, he's going to have to get outside the pocket, as I've touched on there. Hassan Reddick's going to be pressuring him on virtually every play. And we have touched on the fact his mobility might be hampered. And if it is, this bet will lose. Fair enough. I'll have to stomach it and be, why were you so stupid to bet the rushing yards?
I'm going to have a lot of those this Super Bowl. I can feel it.
But at the same time, much like the Kansas City defense has struggled with QB scrambles all year, so has the Philly defense because they also play man coverage outside and zone on a vast amount of plays. So I think Mahomes, especially if the Chiefs are down and they're forced to throw the ball after throwing the ball after throwing the ball, Mahomes is going to have to scramble on one or two occasions. And I think he's going to hit at least 20 rushing yards in this game. So I'll take that at 10-11 as well.
Nice. I like it. All right, then. There we go. That is where we are landing. Best of luck out there if you're going to have some action on it. Incidentally, if you are and you're a new SBK customer, bet £10 to get £10 in free bets. The Super Bowl is a good opportunity as ever to get involved with some of that action. But if you do get involved, of course, as always, everything in moderation. Gamble responsibly. BeGambleAware.org. Crystal Tom, it has been an absolute pleasure and an education rolling with you this season, man.
Mate, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed our shows. Hopefully all the viewers have enjoyed tuning into SBK Edge Rush Extra every week as well. I mean, it's sad that we've come to the end of the season. I feel this every time, but let's enjoy the Super Bowl. Let's go out on a high. Hopefully it's a great game for not only the punters like ourselves having a couple of bets on the Super Bowl, but also for the neutral. Get more people into the sport. Hopefully American football can continue to grow in the UK.
Yeah, well said. A lovely way, a lovely sentiment to end this series of SBK Edge Rush Extra. To echo Crystal Tom, hope you enjoyed it. Wherever you're watching or listening, we'll catch you next time. Take care.